Hi, I'm Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of RegAlytics. Welcome to this week's Regulatory Roundup. There were 195 regulatory updates, a light week, probably because the regulators are preparing for their annual enforcement and rulemaking priorities. The regulator of the week is South Dakota. In a total reversal on hemp, the governor of South Dakota identified 4 guardrails that, if achieved through legislation, she would agree to pass rules that legalize the production of industrial hemp in South Dakota. In her statement, she acknowledged that she had previously vetoed a bill because she wanted to wait to hear what the federal government did. Now that there are federal guidelines and a number of states that are issuing rules addressing, for example, cross-border transportation concerns, she knows that it's time for South Dakota to act. The regulation she's willing to pass needs to have 4 things. 1, a reliable standard of enforcement. 2, responsible regulations regarding licensing, reporting, and inspections. 3, an appropriate plan for safe transportation, and 4, an adequate funding plan. I find this particularly interesting because Idaho has been competing with South Dakota on becoming the least regulated state in America. But even Idaho last year had to pass a rule allowing for transportation of illegal hemp products through Idaho. So for those 50 states that wanted to remain silent or deregulated, even they are realizing that they have to act. The topic of the week are National Market System Equity Data Plans. Regulation National Market System, or RegNMS, is an SEC rule that focuses on improved fairness in price execution, as well as improving the displaying of quotes and amount and access to market data. In 1972, before this regime existed, the market for securities was fragmented, and the same stock sometimes traded at different prices at different places, which made it hard to comparison shop. So in 1975, Congress passed a rule asking the SEC to facilitate a national market system. So every year, certain exchanges get together and propose their rules. And a number of them came out this week to address, for example, confidentiality rules, as well as conflict of interest rules. But then the SEC came out with a proposal that asked all of the exchanges and FINRA to work together to create one consolidated equity data plan. Until that new plan is proposed and accepted by the SEC, the exchanges continue to put forth their individual fragmented plans. So it's going to be a really interesting year to watch this topic and see where it goes. In our Fine Tracker segment, the Federal Civil Penalties Inflation Adjustment Act Improvements Act of 2015, what a name for a regulation, is basically an act that requires all agencies to manually adjust for inflation in the civil monetary penalties that are imposed under the statutes administered by the agency. As is required by the rule, all of the agencies have to publish it annually, and so a whole bunch of agencies, including the CFTC, SEC, FTC, published what their ongoing fines will be in 2020. Also in fines, JP Morgan got busted by the SEC for failing to disclose to customers that they were eligible for a less expensive share class, and also failing to disclose that their brokers would get a higher commission for selling the more expensive share class. Also in fines, for those of you following data privacy issues, the US-EU Data Privacy Shield framework continues to be the way the FTC is enforcing GDPR inside the United States. And a California-based medical technology company was fined for failing to follow customer disclosure rules. Finally, a very interesting fine out of California. A California-based mortgage broker is going to pay $120,000 in fines to settle Federal Trade Commission allegations that it violated the Fair Credit Reporting Act by revealing personal information about customers in response to negative Yelp reviews. In the complaint, it actually shows how an employee on behalf of the mortgage broker wrote responses to the negative customers' complaints. For example, your credit report shows 4 late payments from a Capital One account, 1 late from this bank. All of these late payments are having an enormous negative impact on your credit score. In other news, both the SEC and FINRA issued their exam priorities for 2020. So if you are coming up on an exam this year, be sure to skim that and make sure you are ready to respond to those concerns. There are some in the industry that are joking, just be ready for everything. The CFPB is seeking potential board members for its advisor councils. If you know someone who should be serving, especially if they are a diverse candidate, the open councils are the Consumer Advocacy Board, the Community Bank Advisory Council, the Credit Union Advisory Council, and the Academic Research Council. Yours truly would love to be nominated. Treasury announced 2 final regulations related to foreign investment in the United States, identifying what needs to be reviewed, especially relative to national security. So for those of you managing AML, KYC, Bank Secrecy Act, you better now look at Treasury because these are other requirements you're going to have to take a look at relative to beneficial owners. Also interesting, as it's showing the changing workforce in America, the IRS launched a new gig economy tax center. It's to help people pay taxes. And it's understandable because a lot of people that do gigs often fail to get W-2s or 1099s and general information for their returns. But guess what? It's taxable. Even if you're paid in cash or Venmo or other payment system, anytime where you get income, it's basically taxable. And finally, in crypto and cannabis corner combined, a very interesting case came out of Washington State this week. Duber Technologies connected cannabis consumers with cannabis retailers through the company's digital platform. They wanted to expand their platform through the sale of a digital token called a Duber token. The company went to great legal lengths to confirm that the Duber token was not a security. However, for whatever reason, the company decided not to go forward with the token and returned all of the investors' money. And when they decided to end this token sale, essentially Washington State considered this rescission offer as an official rescission of a security without filing an exemption from registration as a security for purposes of the rescission offer. This all goes to show that we are constantly breaking new ground in redefining what tokens and digital assets even are. That's it this week for RegAlytics US Alerts. Join us every Wednesday morning on LinkedIn for your quick summary of financial regulatory updates. And for the extended version, please join us on our YouTube channel.